A very big aloha and welcome. I guess this is a conversation with a friend.
It is, Cindy. It's great to be with you, especially to talk about this very important person in my life.
Well, we're talking about a friend of both of ours and your Hanai mother, Reverend Mary Omwake. I'm here with James Jacobson, who is a well-known podcaster and does dog podcasts. You got a very clever name for your podcast, don't you?
Well, yes, we have a whole company. It's called Dog Podcast Network. And yesterday I was actually trying to write some copy to describe it. And I thought, you know what? I think the name pretty much says it.
It does, absolutely. You've also done a book about meditating with dogs, which was brilliant and are
Thank you.
really a wonderful. And I didn't know till this very moment, just about 5 minutes ago, actually, that you actually had done radio when you were 15. But I met you through Mary Omwake. We have a group of 6 radio stations on Maui, but we have the number one talk radio stations here on Kauai at 1110 AM and also on FM. And I met Mary many, many years ago. And at one point, I realized how she was so expansive and so she thought big. And we're still kind of in her essence and her presence because she just passed away on April 14th. And I reached out to you because I know you were very, very close to her and she loved you so much. In Hawaii, there's a thing called Hanai, and she actually adopted you as her Hanai son. But you actually connected, uh, I guess, did you connect through the show, Conversations with Friends?
Well, I think through church at Unity, and then, but of course, she was just the minister, and we were talking, and I think I had volunteered to be on a media committee, and I think you and I were on, and some other
Right.
people, and you were saying, you should do a radio show, and they wanted a producer, and somehow I opened up my mouth and said, well, I did radio when I was a kid. I kind of know radio. And of course, I was recruited for the incredibly lucrative job of being Mary's producer. And I don't think she knew much about my on-air chops or whatever. She was just like, it was great to have a person in when you're in a small church. So I volunteered, and it was actually through several years of doing this every once a week. I don't remember the day of the week, it was Tuesday, but we built a relationship on conversations with friends that ended up basically bringing us closer and closer together because we were working on the show. And as you say, she adopted me, or I adopted her, or we had decided that we were Hanai one another.
And it was such a beautiful relationship, and that is one of the things. And I'm going to say love because I do feel her spirit is definitely present. I'm wearing a jacket she gave me, but one of the things I learned the most and loved the most about Mary is she would be a cheerleader and absolutely love people. I mean, do anything to support them. And here she's really truly world class with some of the things she'd done in the past and access to some amazing, famous speakers and writers. And we'll go down the list, but I might as well mention some. Wayne Dyer. She loved Michael Beckwith. She knew Marianne Williamson. She had gone and had a chance to spend time with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and you did a beautiful interview with Deepak Chopra on Conversations with Friends. But she had that reach. But at the same time, oh, Ram Dass, we can't forget. We can't
I was going to
forget
say,
Ram
we can't
Dass.
forget her brother Ramdas.
She had such a love for these people that she never ever thought of limiting them. She would just give herself with innocence and devotion to these people, like you and the others, and do anything she could, and to me, and support them in any way she could.
She was an amazing. She impacted so many lives, both here in Maui and really around the world. And since she died, I received countless messages on Facebook, and other people have been able to track down my personal phone number,
Oh no.
and and have been sharing the impact that she had on their lives, and sometimes in pretty dramatic ways. I mean, she was there when people were at their lowest and gave them and saw for them the vision, and was able to, I think one of her most extraordinary skills was the ability, and she called it hold the field, but basically create this space and this essence that you felt when she was up on stage as a minister, and you also felt when she would pray with you. There is no one better that I've ever encountered at praying. She is a, an extraordinary prayer, and she prayed for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people felt those prayers.
He also, because we did a woman's circle and she'd be present for gatherings sometimes. When she went into meditation, I would sit there sometimes in meditation with her. And this bliss, that she just had this bliss, the state of absolute light and bliss. You've seen it come over her face. She had it when she'd look at Ram Dass as well. But this amazing bliss. And I took a picture of her when we were out. She loved the Pacific Whale Foundation and the whales. And she would take any opportunity she had to go out for the whale. I mean, I think she probably went out on more whale watches than anyone I've ever known.
I think at one time, a couple of years ago, they had one of those season passes. You can go as many times as you want. And she would like pretty much go once or twice a week.
Yes, absolutely she would. And then she found the other one down in Kihei, which you could go on the small rubber boats and she'd go out with that. But we would make it a ritual because I'm an Aquarian and she was very, very Aquarian. She was an Aquarian, which is a humanitarian to the utmost. She'd support the peace projects and she'd support anyone that was downtrodden. And she was all about, bringing in that light. And I did this new CD that I wrote for my sister called In the Hands of God. And I was playing it on my iPhone. And I'd sent her it and she loved it. And I was playing it as I took this picture of her. And she had that beautiful bliss on her face. And she could be in that state in spite of some very painful challenges in the last 3 or 4 years, where she went past the life expectancy by quite a long bit.
Yeah, she was able to hold the space in such a way and to manifest. She believed in miracles. I think that one of the foundations of Unity Church is it's a prayer ministry. So, the Fillmores, and I'm not a good historian for Unity Church, but it is fascinating to look at the genesis of Unity Church and its role in how it evolved from basically a real strong prayerful community related to helping overcome some pretty serious physical ailments, and how that turned into a really big religious movement in the United States, of which Mary was, I think at one time, certainly one of the most well-known, most respected Unity ministers.
She got one of their awards for that. And she would go back. And I think we have a hard time on Maui imagining how she was able to have a whole ministry that she was famous for building, but she'd get up to 2,000 people. Here, she was able to do it where it had never been done before, because at Christmas and also for Easter, she would rent out the largest facility we had here for that, the MAC. And you know what? It would sell out.
The Castle Theater was extraordinary. I remember Easter celebrations, people would be on stage and look up, and there were people on the far top loges or whatever that is up there, or the top thing, which is the nosebleed seats. People were up there.
And she remember how Wayne Dyer would come, Dr. Wayne Dyer would come and speak, and she'd have that there and introduce that. And again, obviously full houses, for those. And were you there when she had Michael Beckwith at the Maui Lu?
Yes.
That was amazing.
It was an extraordinary thing. And these are not people who, these were genuinely her friends. I mean, I'd like to think that the discernment among people like Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer and Barbara Marx Hubbard is pretty strong. And they viewed her as a contemporary, and she was in so many regards. I know there's some stories of Mark Victor Hansen, who is, the author of The Chicken Soup for the Soul, and Jack Canfield coming to her church in Kansas when they had this idea for the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And she basically helped them pray it in and helped manifest it into a book that I think at least not too many years ago had outsold the Bible. So, and people, that's why Mark came when she retired. Not that many, but it doesn't. I don't remember when she retired from Unity here. Mark came in for a farewell dinner that we had at in a local restaurant in Wailuka.
I didn't know about that. That one I had not heard about. I did have a chance to participate and get to know. When she loved people, she just loved them, and she loved the wonderful couple, the nurse and the amazing doctor who started at the age of 65 and went to Africa to build their hospital and treat people there. And remember when she brought in the baskets that they had the local people made there, and she brought them into Unity, and then she brought them in. Remember how wonderful that was?
Oh, and they just came and visited not too long ago. They visited, they were recently here in Maui, like within the last year, to visit Mary.
They came into the station, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so, and she was very instrumental in their growth, both when she had that large church in Kansas and here, and just her platform in general with Agent, which is, I think, the Association for Global New Thought or something like that, of which she was a member of the board, along with people like Michael Beckwith. And she was really foundational in supporting that incredible hospital, helping so many people in the most horrible, rural conditions in Africa.
I still have my basket that I bought from them,
That's awesome.
When you go and you just buy the basket, of course,
Right.
And I had the chance, Paula was her name, I think.
Paula and Denny, I think, yeah.
Denny, yes, absolutely charming, wonderful people. And she would do that wholeheartedly and help support them totally, of course. And then there was that amazing way she did take Agent, Global New Thought, and was able to get that ability to take people to His Holiness the Dalai Lama on a retreat they were doing at the Pope's Summer Castle there. I think it's Gandolfo or whatever. And then they had that group right there in a room with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Not an easy achievement.
Not an easy achievement, and one of the prayerful hopes, aspirations for one of the people went on the trip, Virgie Cantorna, was to be able to dance hula for the Dalai Lama. And as miracles unfolded, she was able to dance hula for the Dalai Lama. And that, I think, has to be a highlight for everyone who is there to witness that.
And I think it almost didn't happen, but miracles happen when you believe. And she was able to do that. I remember that amazing story.
Faith is that's what Mary, one of the many, many gifts that Mary gave me and so many other people, was her proof that faith works, that things that are quote unquote impossible are less impossible if you really believe, and then also surrender to what she would say oh so often, which is divine right flow. So I think faith combined with divine right flow can lead to miracles, and she definitely saw that in her life, and everyone who was impacted by her words saw that.
Dharamsala, and was able to spend time there. And that's not an easy journey. I mean, I've had a few friends do that, but it's quite a long journey from Delhi to get up there. And she was able to do that, And again, I think this is the unlimited consciousness, not limiting what you can and can't do. And I always want to remember that as such an inspiration. Why limit yourself? She never limited what she could or couldn't do, She thought so big, that, and it really was an inspiration in so many ways. I was really happy. I asked her to write an introduction for my last book, Spiritual Tools for a Better Life. And I have to get you that one, by the way. She was so kind. And this is just right last November. So she was going through her challenges where she would have these issues. She'd have to go sometimes weekly to the doctor for help to get drained, and she still wrote it and she got it done. And it's for me so special to have her do that introduction, for that. And I was able to get her my new CD I did in tribute for my sister, and I sent it to her, and she sent it out to a bunch of people. That's just the way she thought. I'm trying to remember how she met Ramdas. Do you remember? Was it through a conversation with friends interview? Or?
I don't know. It did definitely. It was, I think, through Wayne, because Wayne brought Ramdas here.
Good point.
But I do remember the first time we had him on our show. And of course, Ramdas was later in his life aphagic from a stroke, which means his speech was not totally clear, and there'd be long pauses between words, which, Cindy, as a radio person, not the best thing. But we had him on, and I would always be responsible for doing the introductions. And I think I introduced him, much to Mary's chagrin, as a best-selling author, along with his other honorifics. But I just find him that way, and that I remember we had a lot of jokes about that, because she thought that was like saying, the Dalai Lama, best-selling author. She viewed him with such reverence that to describe him that way was not at all to address his greatness. And in fact, as I said, that Mary and I had sort of hanaied one another. Ram Dass really became part of our family, and we would do these dinners at one point. Actually, Ram Dass sort of, I don't even know. We did a little ceremony at Mary's apartment with my wife Molly and Ram Dass, and it was basically the four of us, and he sort of anointed us as a family, and it was a beautiful thing. But we used to get together nearly every year for Mary's birthday, which is Aquarian, late January, January 30th. And I'd like to cook, so I would cook a meal, and it would be not Ram Dass with his entire entourage, but just with Dasima and a couple of people, and we would break bread, maybe not in the type of food that he would normally have, but it was a fun thing, and I got to spend quality time with Ram Dass and Mary in a way that she described as the highlight of her year.
I was invited one year, and it was so very special. I think I took a picture of that one as well. And you can see and you could feel the adoration and love that she had from, which I know many people who are kind of, I hate to call them groupies, but followers who follow in the guru status. That was not the way she loved him. It wasn't because of that. She loved him with pure love because she saw his true spirit, and she was able to completely be aware of exactly what a high place that
He
she
described her
was.
as his sister. Yeah, I mean, they really had a sister brother relationship, and when you get to connect with people who have large platforms, sometimes they're not exactly who they are, behind the scenes, right? I mean, that's not an unknown thing, whether you're a celebrity in Hollywood or as a spiritual leader. To have them be so close and so connected, and to see their genuine respect and love and adoration, and the ability to sort of sit in the silence. We were talking about that, which is they could really hold the field together in a way that was palpable. You could feel it in your core.
I'll never forget how Mary told me that Ram Dass told her that Jesus Christ was her guru. And Mother Mary, I've always loved it back. Of course, Mother Mary and I are very close. And of course, that's another Mary, and Mary Omwake understood it beautifully. And we had many communications and some interviews about Mother Mary, which were just, again, that understanding that pure spirit connection. And I saw that in her all the way up to the last time I saw her. And when I talked to her, I have to tell you a funny little story, because I go walking out the Wai'ehu Reserve, and I always, for some reason, walking out there, I would think of her. Not that she ever walked out there. It's a road by the ocean. It's dirt, and she didn't do a lot of walking at that time. But I would always call her because this peacock would come up, and there's a bunch of peacocks, and one had a kind of really bent leg, and I would do healing, and I got to be close, and I would take pictures and send them to Mary. So the day after, it was the morning after she passed, I went out there and I went to do a walk out there. That peacock, I was sitting for a while. The peacock with the bad leg and a limp came running, literally running across a huge field and just came over. I took like a bunch of pictures and I thought, oh, I would take these pictures and I'd normally send them to Mary, because she loved seeing this peacock, and I told her that story. And I think the peacock sensed that energy. And I just played in the hands of God for the peacock. I did. I did.
The peacock like it? Well, that your jacket that you're wearing, which
It's
Mary gave you,
peacock.
looks like a peacock blue. It's peacock blue, I think, right?
It is,
Turquoise.
absolutely. And I don't know if I've had many people I've written poems for after they passed, and I've seen many times where there's an amazing sunset, and sunrise. And indeed, the day after she passed, I don't know if she ever told you this, but she said to me, she says, when I go, I want to go in a golden chariot, Mary, I want to go in a golden chariot right up there to the sun. And that's the way I want to go. And I saw this sunrise. I saw this sunrise that was like a golden chariot. Like an amazing, amazing golden chariot going into the sun. And I took a bunch of pictures, right? And I wrote this: moments of majesty slip through the veil, golden light that appears to be a chariot that comes to set you free. If sometimes we're lost in the rooms of darkness and despair, we can call upon the Lord and feel that living presence here. Moments of glory bless us when we're in need. Signs of the blessings come when we believe. Cherish the beauty, cherish the time, cherish the miracles sent by God as signs. We can have the gift of faith when we are open to receive the power of that strength. It can allow us to truly feel moments of majesty with glory proclaimed. There is a light that transforms the form into the eternal flame. Cherish that beauty, cherish the time, cherish the miracles sent by God's love divine. Moments of majesty slip through the veil, golden light that appears to be a chariot to set you free. So I wrote that for Mary.
Beautiful, Cindy. That is beautiful.
She was such a supporter of you and me. She just honored you and your lovely wife, Molly, in so many ways. And you know what? She lived her life well. She lived her life
She
well.
she lived her life well. She had uh, a very adventurous spirit. As you say, she traveled all over the world and went on spiritual journeys and loved to travel, which is something I love to do. And and just really had a big heart, and I think anyone who knew her was really lucky to feel that. I wrote a little thing on my on well, I put it on Mary Omwake's Facebook page as I wrote it, but basically someone once described her as a spiritual comedian. And I don't think that was her most favorite description, but I think it was very true because she was so aware of the dichotomy between the ego and the spirit. And so much of her messaging came from sharing candidly with the people in the audience, and whether the audience was on the radio or whether the audience was, before 2,000 parishioners, she was able to share eloquently that struggle that we all have to overcome the ego and to do what we know in our heart and feel in our heart is right. And that, I think, is the sign of a true leader. There's like, she was able to do it, and she did it with grace and humor, and I miss her so much.
Well, people can go to, I looked up Conversation with Friends, and by the way, someone's done a book with that name in a movie. So you have to put in Mary Omwake after
Okay,
Conversation.
so yeah, you're talking about the podcast. So I
Yes.
back in 2005, we were doing that radio show at the station, I said, "Can I to Gary the engineer? Can I get that burn an MP3 of each of these shows?" And he gave it to me, and he had no idea what you're doing with it. And so I put them up. We were early podcast in 2005, and you can still find Conversations with Friends in wherever you get podcasts, and you can hear these great interviews with Ram Dass or Deepak Chopra or Wayne Dyer.
Marianne
And I think we
Williamson.
also have the website conversationswithfriends.com, and I'll make sure that is once again working so people can find the podcasts there.
Yeah, it's truly inspiring, and her energy does really live on in so many people's love. And next year, when we go out with the whales again, we'll be thinking every time we go on a whale watch. I know every time I go on a whale watch, I will be thinking of Mary and her love of being out there in the water with the whales breaching, and that understanding the beauty, the absolute beauty that exists out there. I mean, she's a dear, dear friend who's very close, and I know she'll be there always for me in spirit. And I know the same with you. I'm thinking right now of working on a new CD actually dedicated to her for next year, because I know she loved the one I did for my sister. So I'd like to dedicate one to her as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's really a treat. I'm so glad we had the time to talk, because I know how busy you are. And
Well, it's my pleasure, and it's nice to be able to do this and to talk about Mary, because she was so important to me.
me as well, and so many. And I hope people resonate with that as well. So I know she's always with you on your journey onward, and I know she'll always be with me in my heart, and working as a cheerleader behind the scenes. And I thank you for taking your time and sharing your love and your stories with Mary with me. So until we talk next time, a very big aloha to you.
Aloha ahui ho.
We are in the hands of God. Every moment, every day, held in the love that's holding such amazing grace. For that presence I give thanks. Constant, always there with me. Find inner peace. Remembering in life to pray. In the hands of God, I am in the hands of God. True companion that is God. For we never walk alone, a constant spirit that lifts us up to higher ground. We are in the hands of God. Thank the Lord, oh, every day for helping us Spirit is a blessing God, speaking soft in silence.